Now we can get started. Welcome, everybody, to episode 10 of 20-Minute Talks of Commercial Collection Agencies of America. If you are not a member of Commercial Collection Agencies of America, that's okay. We still love you. You can stay. I would remind everybody to please mute themselves now so we can have Patrick and Umberto speak without interruption. Um, I'm going to monitor the chat box. So if you have any questions or even comments, we welcome some great comments that we can filter to Patrick. Please put them in the chat box. A couple of housekeeping items. Last month we had to reschedule the episode on skip tracing. So we now have the speaker healthy and ready to present on August 21st. So 2 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific, August 21st, and you'll get an invitation for that. And that's the first housekeeping reminder. The second housekeeping reminder is registration is live for Commercial Collection Agencies of America's annual conference. So if you go to the website, which I'll put in the chat box, and you wish to be with us in Delray Beach in October, we would love to have some new people. We love the veterans as well. And then right before I turn it over to Umberto Matz, the CCA of A president, in all good thoughts, we've got a couple of birthday people. Umberto Matz, our president, celebrated a birthday earlier in the month, as did our speaker, Patrick Kilburn. So, Bob Tarnish, I see you, and happy birthday tomorrow. Greg Garner is on the 22nd. So happy birthday. I hope you had a great birthday, Greg Garner, and Nancy Hamilton on the 23rd. I don't know if anybody else has a birthday, but if you do, throw it in the chat box. But a very happy birthday to Umberto, Patrick, Bob, Greg, and Nancy. So, Umberto, Greg is waving. Umberto, I'm going to turn it over to you. And like I said, welcome to everybody. And you are in good hands with Umberto and Patrick.
All right, thank you everybody for attending. We appreciate the interest, and I think you'll find Patrick to be a great speaker and a wealth of information. So Patrick Kilburn's practice centers around the representation of banks, large and small corporations, and general creditors in the collection of past due accounts, both in and outside of litigation, throughout Lloyd and McDaniel's growing Southeast U.S. footprint. After working with a local regional bank, Mr. Kilburn brings clients real-world experience to protect their interests. Mr. Kilburn attended the University of Kentucky, BBA in Finance, 2004, and University of Louisville, if I pronounced it right, Brandeis School of Law, 2007, and he is admitted to practice in the state of Indiana, the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the state of Florida, the U.S. District Court, Western District of Kentucky, U.S. Bankruptcy Court, Western District of Kentucky, U.S. District Court,
Yeah.
Kentucky.
A bunch of those.
You got a bunch of these. You got quite
Too
the
many of them.
here, Patrick. So everybody, please welcome Patrick. And Patrick, thank you for taking the time and giving us a little bit of your knowledge.
Yeah, thank you guys very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk and share a little bit here today. As the ad went out, I am going to talk today about post-judgment enforcement and kind of some tips and strategies that you can use in that arena. So the purpose of today's presentation, like I said, is to explain some post-judgment remedies and methods that are available to enforce a judgment once it's been entered by a court. The big reason that you want to do this is, what is the purpose of jumping through all the hoops to get the judgment if you're not going to at least try to collect it? It's funny. I know a lot of very, very good attorneys who know how to get judgments and absolutely have no idea whatsoever to do once they've done that. These are very high dollar attorneys, and they just assume that people just pay them. And I'm like, no, that doesn't work that way. And so I get calls from very large firms here in town all the time that say, hey, I've got a client that has a judgment. Would you guys like to take it over and see if you guys can collect it? And we do that, fairly regularly. So what I want to do is, like I said, is go over a lot of the available remedies, procedures, and some of the limitations and some of the defenses that a defendant can use in this situation. So first thing you want to think about is, what is our legal framework? Here we got the governing law. Under federal rules, in federal law, federal courts, we've got Rule 69. That's anything to do with post-judgment issues. Most state law was going to mirror the federal law. In Kentucky, it's the same rule. It's Rule 69. But each state is a little different. Also, each state has a little difference in what remedies are available. And then you've got certain courts have their own procedures on how these remedies look, and how they are actually implemented. So let's look at, and so some of the most common ones that you have that you can look at are, we'll say, a writ of execution. That can be one that is the seizure and sale of non-exempt assets. That can be from a corporation, or any other type of entity or individuals, again, depending upon the state. And then that could be a issue where you have it could be by sheriff or other process type server. They have a marshal, per se, in New York. Particularly New York City has a marshal that does it. Oftentimes the sheriff or the person who is doing that sale gets a percentage of the sale. That's kind of their carrot for doing it. But they can go in, they'll take whatever they can. I've seen it anywhere from they'll take and seize cars to a list of household items if they need to. I had a case once where it was in federal court, and I sent the U.S. Marshal Service out, because they are the sheriff's department for the federal courts. I sent them out to a jewelry store, and they did the whole song and pony show of putting on the vests and the jackets that said U.S. Marshals, and went to the sale, this place, and asked them and said, okay, we're here to collect this judgment. And they asked me, and they said, what do you want? And I was like, get cash, but if you can't, get some diamonds. I don't care. Whatever you think you can sell. So they start laughing and they start laughing, and they said, okay. And then they called me up and they said, all right, they gave us cash, so we'll take it back. We'll write you a check and get it done. And I said, thanks. But they had fun with it. And oftentimes I think the sheriffs that regularly do it, they're good at it. They know how to do it. They clear it out pretty quick. But there are some time frames available. There are some ability to do it pre-judgment. Those have a lot of hoops to jump through to do that. Oftentimes you're going to have to be a secured creditor to do that. And that too most states require that it's a situation where the assets are going to be fleeing the jurisdiction for something, or they're going to be used up. So there's a worry that you're not going to be able to get them post-judgment. But again, all these have processes that they have to be going through. Next up, one of the most common ones is going to be wage and bank garnishments. There are limitations to those. Each state has its own varying ability. Some states allow wage garnishments, some do not. Some allow higher percentages of the wages as that are exempt. Some do not. Some have thresholds that are higher than others. So it all really depends upon the state that you're involved in. Some states don't allow them at all. South Carolina does not allow wage garnishments. They do not allow bank garnishments. There are exemptions. Oftentimes they'll have, it'll be 25% of take-home pay. But that take-home pay is limited to, they don't consider in the calculation if you're making voluntary contributions to 401ks or to certain automatic deductions or contributions to, say, certain insurance policies that aren't your Medicaid, your taxes, state and federal taxes. Bank account garnishments are great. Oftentimes you take everything out of the account at one time. They're typically a snapshot. So when the bank gets served with that garnishment, whatever is in the account at that moment is tied up. And then each state has its varying processes of what that looks like after that period. Kentucky, for instance, basically the defendant has 20 days to kind of challenge that garnishment. In that they have to show that those are somehow exempt from garnishment. They're either federally protected, so they are some type of SSI, Social Security benefit, or they're not the judgment debtor's assets, that they are completely contributed from some other means, another individual, say. But if not, after the 20 days, the bank will just write a check, send it to you. Indiana's different. Indiana places a 90-day hold on the account. And then depending upon the county that you're in, you will have what they call a proceeding supplemental, which is also, most people call it debtor's exam. And it allows you to come in and you have to have that hearing basically, and then the court will enter an order to have any funds turned over. But then a defendant can ask for their personal exemption, which in Indiana, I believe right now is $350. So anything above that amount would come to you. But if the defendant doesn't request it, you get it without that exemption. And then each state has its varying degrees of that. Florida, which is another state I practice in, has a process where you file the garnishment, you give the defendant notice of the garnishment, and then that they have certain rights that they can challenge the garnishment, that they are head of household for, say, certain exemptions. They then then the garnishment has to be served upon the bank by actual service of process. So they actually have to serve the bank's registered agent or the employer's registered agent. If it's a wage garnishment, that gets served. Then you get the answer from that. If it's a positive answer, a second notice is given to the defendant that here we have the answer. This is how much it is. If they don't request a hearing, they don't, claim an exemption of some sort, then 20 days after that period, you can ask the court to enter the final order of the garnishment. So it just kind of depends on your state, what that time period involves. Then you can, then there's a situation where you can have a levy. That's it's real similar to a writ of execution. End of the day, you might have heard them called till taps. That's what they used to be called a lot of times. I've had it where I've sent a sheriff out to, say, a restaurant and had them walk in and take money out of the register. I've had that happen. So that's another thing that can happen. Today it's not as useful because you have a lot of credit card and card transactions, ACHs and such. But then another one is a judgment lien. Judgment liens are great. Got a case going on right now where I think in this last week I've sent 4 payoffs of judgment lien requests. Even in today's situation where we've got rates a little higher, people are still trying to buy houses, sell houses, and refinance. So judgment liens will attach to property, again, depending upon the state how that attaches, and if they are a separate recording or not. Indiana, the judgment itself operates as the lien. It's filed in a book by the court when it's entered, and it is a lien itself. Kentucky, for say, you actually file a separate lien, and then Florida's the same way. But then that lien then can get paid. I've got a case going right now where the defendant is asking me to release it because his sister is going to pay us in her bankruptcy. That's probably not going to happen. My client's not going to do that. So, they, depending upon the state, it depends on how each state is different on how long those are, and how long they're good for. Some states, they're good for 10 years. They can be renewed for another 10. Sometimes they're only good for 10 years. Sometimes they survive a bankruptcy. Sometimes they don't. A lot of situations where a defendant will file a bankruptcy, the lien's there, and then they didn't avoid the lien in the bankruptcy. So it's the underlying debt itself is extinguished, but the lien is still there. So to get really rid of the lien, they would have to reopen the bankruptcy and have it avoided. So oftentimes you can get a defendant to pay a little bit just to do that. It's either pay you or pay the bankruptcy attorney to do it. So that's a way that you can get a little bit out somebody. Debtors exams are another one. That is a court-ordered testimony. It's just like a deposition. You get to haul them into court, bring them under oath, and ask them about their assets. If they fail to appear and they've been served, you can look at having contempt proceedings brought. My experience has been it's hard to get a judge to hold them in contempt. You have to show a lot of effort has been involved and that you have served them personally before a judge will do it, but some judges will. I know a judge in Indiana that he looks at it as the order to appear is his order to appear, and he does not care that the attorney doesn't want a body attachment. It's his order that they're ignoring, and so you go into a courtroom for a proceeding supplemental that day, and everyone is there. It's a very busy day, and the courtroom is full. But but that's another thing that can be used. Some other ones that are kind of a little special or a little outside the box that you can do is a garnishment, say a non-wage garnishment, but to an entity that's not a bank. So think sending a bank garnishment to Medicaid, Medicare, an insurance company if you've got a doctor or a dentist, as your defendant, some kind of third party payer who's going to pay your defendant. And me and Umberto, before we started, we were talking, and is send it to AAA if you've got care credit would be a good one. Yeah. AAA if you've got a tow company as a defendant, that's a good kind of use of it. Find out if you've had a debtor's exam and you find out who owes a defendant money, their customer list. Send it to all their customers and say, now you owe me. There are a situation where you can get charging orders. So say you have an individual that is a member of an LLC. You can have a court order to where their interest in that LLC or a partnership is converted to your judgment holder, and now they are the holder of that interest. If it's a single member LLC, it doesn't really do you any good. But if it is a multi-member LLC that really isn't your debtor, your judgment debtor, but another separate entity, I've seen it get paid because now the defendant doesn't want to have his partners or his or her partners worrying about some other debt that they had that they didn't really know about or that isn't really dealing with it at that part of their business. So that helps. But it also is a way to, if there's any distributions being made from that other entity, now they come to you. So that's a good one.
Hey, Patrick, I have a question for you. Are you having any issues collecting from any cannabis companies?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a cash business. It's still, even though it's getting more accepted, there are some banking systems banks that will bank them now, particularly some credit unions that will bank them. We're actually started medical marijuana became illegal here in Kentucky this year. And they start, I think it began July 1st that you could get your card, your medicinal card. But I have a case going on right now where you can get a judgment against them fairly easy, but these guys they set up new companies. It's tough. It's a tough industry.
I know. Well, the reason I ask is like here in California, a lot of the sheriffs, they refuse, a lot of them don't have bank accounts because it is a cash business. And a lot of the sheriffs, we used to go out and do till taps. And a lot of sheriffs are now refusing to go do till taps here in California.
Interesting.
Or
What's the basis of their refusal?
They feel that they're exceptionally dangerous.
Contact
They don't actually send a sheriff's officer. They send someone from the civil section. So it's not like they're going there armed.
So speaking of till taps, Leanne from Roush says, I love a till tap. She just sent one to a country club because who wants a sheriff taking money out of the till at the country club? It's a great motivation to solve if the till tap doesn't net the entire amount due. They don't want the sheriff coming back. And I agree. I mean, you have to be creative when you're doing post judgment, when you're sitting on a desk, a legal desk at an agency. And I've told this story 100 times, but my favorite till tap was at the Irish pub that I got to choose the date, and it was St. Patrick's Day.
Of course.
And it was collected like
it's the best one ever.
Whoever didn't have the sheriff in California go out, about embarrassment. I once had to embarrass a sheriff in Medina County, Ohio, and I got my money pretty quick.
Annette, when I deal with pubs like that, we will send the sheriff out to seize the liquor license.
Yes.
Oh, take it off the wall?
Take it off the wall.
Yeah.
And the sheriffs are usually smart, and they'll go out on Friday morning.
Yes.
Giving those guys all day to come up with the money so they can continue in business over the weekend.
And it's shocking how the money just
shows up.
Yeah.
I did. If you were in Nashville, I told a story on a restaurant here in town on a till tap. That was pretty interesting. But if you weren't, I'll give you the heads up. The real quick, brief version of it. But sheriff went out to serve a Vietnamese restaurant here in town. Walks into the owner's office. Owner jumps out real quick, won't let him in the office. Kind of refuses to let him up. Makes the mistake of touching the officer. Officer then tells him to open the door now and don't touch me again or you're going to jail. Opens the door and on the guy's desk, it is covered in cash. So he made him count every single penny of the judgment and took it. He goes, I don't know what that guy was doing, but I don't think he was just selling food.
Yeah, that not just Thai food. Would you say a Thai restaurant?
Yeah,
Not just Thai food.
Vietnamese restaurant.
Vietnamese, yeah,
Yeah,
not just Vietnamese food. What
yeah.
Patrick is referring to is that CCAV had its semi-annual conference in Nashville last April. And similar to how we get together digitally here, we had a session called War Stories and Wine. And it was later in the afternoon. So we paired wines with our war stories. And a lot of the people that are um, on this call, but also part of the association, submitted stories about their post judgment execution or their war stories. But I did have a question about a wage garnishment, Patrick. So it says if an employer um, if an employer does not answer a wage garnishment, I thought, can you hold the employer liable? And I know it's per state, right? But have you heard of that before?
Yes, yes. If you can
Okay.
prove, if you've got a good, good ability to prove that they had the order and they've just ignored it, yeah, I've done it. And you get I've gotten it to where I got a judgment against the employer for the full amount of the judgment that was entered
Okay.
against the employee. It's just
There's
a
a couple other questions.
contempt issue.
And then I have a comment. So Lacey, let's talk about post-judgment in South Carolina. Are there really not that many options? I don't know if
There's
we,
really not.
okay.
Um, they do have an ability to execute on real property if your judgment debtor owns real property.
So there
Um,
is a real property execution.
there's a real
Okay.
property execution, but that's about it.
Okay.
It's
And
a really,
then
really tough state.
I
It's
think
another,
Robert Ash has a really good question about a debtor's website.
has
Either to
anybody pursued a debtor's website either to seize, place a lien on it if possible, or seize monies paid on the debtor's site?
I have heard people tell stories that they have done it.
How do you
I
do it?
I don't know how they did it. I know
So
they were talking about contacting whoever hosted the website. So if it was GoDaddy or whoever it was, and then finding out who was operating their who
the
took the
merchant
payments
service
for them, the
the
merchant
merchant
service.
service provider. That's
Yeah.
and yeah, and there's another question. Like, can you touch on Venmo and Cash App and Stripe? Like, can you has anybody or Patrick, have you had success in garnishing those
And chime.
and
Yeah,
Chime
I
too?
have not done it, but I mean it would be the same as doing any kind of other be similar to any of the other ones.
We've done a lot with PayPal.
And
We've done a
PayPal
lot. hmm
and successfully?
Oh, yes. Yes. An old creditor got us onto it, actually. They had
You
a
mean
lot
a
of luck.
veteran? You mean a veteran or an old?
Yes. Tomato,
How do you
tomato.
get
We'll
on,
see.
how do you attach from Zelle?
So Zelle's going to be through the bank, wouldn't it, Patrick?
Well, Zelle, I think, would be its own.
It is a bank.
Yeah, I don't know if they're a bank
You
or
have
if
to have
they're.
an account number, right?
No,
At
Yeah,
that
but
point.
Zelle.
Zelle actually is run by your bank, so I think you would have to
Right.
find it's like somebody writing the debtor a check.
I
Right.
So
was
I
gonna
don't
say
know
it's
that you could
almost
really
like a
hit Zelle.
clearinghouse, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
No,
so how does
Zelle's
it
a
work?
clearinghouse.
it is, isn't it?
Yeah, Zelle isn't the actual bank. It's a service that all the banks use, and it's just simply for transferring of funds. So I guess
I think that would be hard. You'd have to find. I
you'd
don't
have
know
to
how.
serve Zelle
Yeah,
somehow.
you'd serve Zelle, and then they would have to be that instance that they had money in there. That'd
which
be
is
hard.
short. I mean,
Yeah.
So that's
they
not
literally are just a conduit because those transfers happen almost
I
instantly.
mean, if there's a way to tap into Zelle, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So a couple other questions. We have hi Patrick from Ryan. Hi Patrick, in South Carolina, can you subject the debtor to post-judgment discovery? If so, are judges hesitant to enforce penalties for noncompliance.
That I'd have to get back to you on. I'm not
Okay.
100% sure.
Okay, so Patrick, we can get that answer and get it to you.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention that last year the association curated a pretty robust resource document, a very robust resource document. So we queried all of the affiliate attorney members of the association, and they were able to give us in their states what types of post-judgment execution were allowed. So if anybody, I'm going to put my email in the chat box. If anybody wants a copy of that, we'll be able to email it to you. So look for that. Do we have any other questions? Because this is a 20-minute talk and it is now the 31-minute talk. So
I did see Lacey asked about not just restaurants and bars, but other type of licensing. And yeah,
oh
you can
yes.
go after. Yeah. It's that again, dependent upon the state, but yeah, other licensings are fair games depending upon the state. Umberto has a lot of success in going after contractor licensing in California.
Yeah, definitely gets people's attention.
Alabama, if you're unlicensed, if you're an unlicensed contractor, you can't you're technically you don't have to be paid. So
Yeah, same in California, because if it goes above a certain amount, you must have a contractor's license. If it's below, you're just a handyman. So I think the amount's like $1,000 or something like that.
So
They still work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Susan Scott, how do you collect against a credit card? Like I'm sure, Susan, you're talking about like an American Express, because Visa and MasterCard are going to be according to their bank, but you can do a third-party garnishment on American Express.
Yeah.
But not only can you do a third-party garnishment on American Express, let's say that they don't have any money to turn over, you can, at least in California, you can serve a subpoena on a bank
And ask
and
them who they're
Who they're
give us
who they're dealing with.
give us the original a copy of the original credit application, and give us the last known banking information, and if they've received any payments from them, give us the last 6 months of payments, copies of the last 6 months of payments. And then
So for a restaurant, let's say, they take credit cards. So you know that they take MasterCard. How do you collect against their MasterCard?
on that, you need to
account?
find out whoever is doing their merchant services.
And how do
So
you find that out?
you go to the restaurant, Susan, and on the machine that they use is the card of the banker taped on the machine, and then you see what bank it is, and then you do a bank garnishment. At least that's how it used to be when I did this 11 years ago, 12 years ago.
Yeah, well,
But
now it's
I mean, you got to find out the bank. You got to find out.
Now it's just the little handheld machine, and you put your card in, and it doesn't have any.
So one time, one of my most successful post-judgment execution was with Teller Levitt when in Chicago, and I had a $22,000 judgment, and I used to take Wednesdays off, and it was around Christmas time, and I went to a craft show, a Christmas craft show, and I kid you not, the debtor business, it was a plastics company, and it was exhibiting at this craft show. And Teller Levitt I was working with Harold Stotland at the time. Many of you know him. We just couldn't find anything. So I was ecstatic. I went up and I told the guy I wanted to place a large order, but I needed to ACH him the money. And I got his bank account information, and I went to the end of the row, and I called Harold Stotland. I said, okay, bank's at Chase Bank. Now do it. Now garnish it. But I mean, you have to find creative ways in which to do it. I mean, you're not going to go visit every debtor, right? But
I used to go to restaurants and pay by check. And then when I got my physical checks back,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would go.
See where
So bingo,
Back
but
in
you
the
don't
day.
do that anymore.
Yeah.
Peter Dabowski just collected a claim for us a couple of months ago, doing exactly what Annette just described that she did. He got the bank account, garnished it, and we collected it in full.
So, Bree said, side note tidbit, we have had success with monies due levies to Apple App Store and Google Play Store when debtor is an app creator,
Yeah,
has
indeed.
an app up available for download. That's great. That is bringing it right into 2025, right? So that's great. If the person is creating an app or they are the manager of an app and it's up for download, why not? Because I don't know how much money you're going to get, but Bree, that's a great suggestion.
I had another one, Annette, if you don't mind me sharing.
No,
I
that's
don't
what
know
it's
how
all
many,
about.
thank you. I don't know how many people have like cannabis companies, but we have had success with keepers, not necessarily at storefronts, but let's say the cannabis company is a distributor, so they have gummies or plants or whatever like in their trucks going out to other shops. So we have been able to install keepers stopping those trucks from going out to deliver those goods, and they have to get in an agreement with us before we release the keeper. So that has also been very successful for us. So just a little tidbit on that note as well.
What's
Do
a
you, do
keeper?
you accept the return of goods when you have a truck full of that stuff?
Sorry, say again. What did you say?
He said, is there a return of goods?
That was a good one.
From the truck.
What is a keeper, Bree?
So the sheriff's office, just like in a restaurant situation, so a till tap is a little different than a keeper. A keeper would stay there all day. It's a sheriff that would go in. In a restaurant situation, they actually just sit and wait there at the business for hours of operation until the debtor comes into an agreement with the office about how they're going to resolve. In this sense, it's still a sheriff, but he just waits out by the trucks and he doesn't release those trucks until they get into an agreement with how they're going to resolve the balance.
I like that. It doesn't happen in Ohio.
It's pretty great.
So in California, so a till tap, it's just the one, they just show up, whatever's in the cash register, they get, and they leave. But you can ask for a 4-hour keeper, an 8-hour keeper. It just costs more and more and more up front as far as the costs.
Odds are someone doesn't want a sheriff sitting around their business while the customers are coming in. It looks bad. So
we get calls immediately.
Especially if it's cannabis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like to Bree's point, we've held up people's trucks from delivery, and we've held them up for hours and hours. And if it's a logistics company, if they have deliveries to make to like Walmart or Home Depot or whatever, there's penalties if you're late.
Oh, right.
So
you might lose a route.
They're not only and they could turn around and actually refuse the delivery and charge you a penalty for not being there on time. So it's very motivating.
All right, we are at 39 minutes past due. I know that we have got a great conversation. If anybody, I put my email in the chat box. If anybody wants the resource document that was put together by the CCAFA Education Committee, which is awesome, just email me. A huge thank you to Patrick. Patrick, for many of you who didn't know, he chaired the Education Committee and is now a member of it. So thank you to Patrick. Thank you to everybody who showed up today. We literally had our largest audience. We had 60 people. So wonderful. And thank you. Please mark your calendar for August 21st, our rescheduled skip tracing 20-minute talk. And then I will say this. If you are not a member of CCAFA, we love to have you. We would love to have you as a member as well. So please keep my email address. If you're an attorney, ask me about membership. If you're an agency, also ask me about membership. Thank you to everybody. Big appreciation to Patrick Kilburn of Lloyd and McDaniel and to Umberto Matt, CCA of A president. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. And if you're an
Thanks,
attorney
everyone.
out there and you have a topic that you want to discuss that you think would be useful to everyone in the association, send in your ideas. We'd be happy to host you.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, everybody.